And Mike, I got to ask you, a lot of us were raised, we were told by our parents, when a bully hits you, sometimes you have to hit back. The Iranians have hit the U.S. and U.S. allies and interests, whether it's shooting, missiles into tankers, not sinking them, or attacking the Saudi Aramco facility. And now we have retaliated. There was great restraint prior to that, but now we've retaliated. And we're not seeing oil prices. I mean, we're nowhere near $70 for West Texas Intermediate. So what should we make of all this?
Well, look, first of all, Chris Murphy and Ilhan Omar and others who are sort of, trying to figure out a way to respond to this in their typical anti-administration fashion, they probably should sit this one out. Look, Soleimani, if anybody, wants to sit back and take their time to do some research, has been the architect over the past 20 years of the Iranian regime's intelligence and terrorism by proxy strategies. He's personally, over the past 20 years, planned, approved, authorized, overseen countless attacks and operations that have killed not just hundreds and hundreds of U.S. soldiers, but thousands and thousands of Iraqi military, police, civilians, and a variety of others. So nobody outside of the Iranian regime and Syria, frankly, are mourning his passing. But it's interesting because I think folks on the political left, they're trying to find a balance. They're trying to say, well, yeah, he was a monster. He was terrible, and he's got a huge amount of blood on his hands. But oh my God, we got to worry about the repercussions.
Don't we, Mike? I mean, don't we? Well, I saw. Let me just interrupt you for a moment.
Sure, go ahead.
I saw one tweet that I thought captured it, perhaps that line of thinking well, which said this perhaps was a morally just action without being a strategically wise one necessarily. And we talked to a guest earlier who said, okay, this action is done. Yes, he was a bad guy. But now what? You have to have a political strategy, not just a tactical action. So what's the political strategy that now needs to follow this?
Well, look, I don't think I'm particularly well suited to speak to a political strategy, nor do I actually believe a political strategy is what you concern yourself with when you're talking about strategic concerns, counterterrorism, national security issues, protection of U.S. citizens abroad. Yeah, you've got to worry about politics because that's everybody bangs on in the dysfunctional nation's capital here in the U.S. But the reality here is the military and the administration, they don't take a step like this overnight. This has been thought through over a very long time. Look, Soleimani has been the architect of this for years and years and years. He has been a concern, a potential target for a long time. So this has been gamed out. It's not like we haven't deployed assets in anticipation of possible retaliation or repercussions. And those that want to talk about, I don't think the administration has thought this through, they either have a political agenda in saying that, or they're just naive to how things work.
Well, Mike, you mentioned earlier addressing Syria, and a lot of analysts are kind of grouping that strike that President Trump actually commissioned in October, approving sort of the killing of that Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. And there's a very clear difference, right? That was a leader who had already lost his base, lost his support. He was in hiding, whereas we're dealing with someone who was is being perceived as a martyr in some capacity. So don't you feel as though the public sentiment, a lot of the not only military action that could be taken in addition to the cybersecurity concerns that our country faces, but we see people storming the streets really upset about something like this. Don't you expect that will galvanize the entire region and we can face serious repercussions here?
Well, look, I'm not saying that the Iranian regime hasn't, thought about how are they going to retaliate. Of course, the likelihood is, yes, they will in particular incidents. The Iranian regime is not stupid enough to imagine themselves in a direct military conflict with the U.S. So they'll use their proxies as they have in the past over decades now. But look, the idea that we're equating Soleimani with a national foreign leader is nonsense. He was the head terrorist of a nation that is a state sponsor of terrorism. And he's essentially, think about him as a general stepping onto the battlefield to direct his troops, which in this case in Baghdad were the militias, the Iranian stooges. They were gathering to talk about further operations and activities. So I understand the concern, and of course, and again, the administration, the military have thought this through. These things don't happen in a bubble. No matter what people may think of the current administration and their dislike of the current president, the reality is that there is more thought put behind this than just saying, oh, let's punch the button and hit a strike. So yes, we should worry about those. Assets have been deployed. They're being deployed. Our allies are doing the same thing. But it doesn't mean, just because you fear potential repercussions, it doesn't mean that you don't take action, right? I mean, the previous administration, I've seen already a number of people from the previous administration talking about, well, I worked on the Iran account and, I'm really horrified about the potential repercussions. Well, while they were working on the Iran account over the past few years, Soleimani has been operating and running operations that killed U.S. and allied military and civilians. So, look, this justice is a long time coming.
Mike Baker is a former CIA covert operations officer, is also the co-founder of Diligence. Good to have you here on The Move, Mike.
Thank you, Adam.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.